Hello. Let's see if this is on. This is waiting. Let's see. Hello, welcome to Producers Live in Uganda. I'm just having something to get ready for the day. But I thought I should just come and say goodbye and continue with the hangout that I started earlier. So come in, ask me any questions, and then we can take it from there. Yuana 9250, hi. Nice to have you. Oh, I'll just make sure I mute that. So I'm leaving, I'm flying out tomorrow, and I will be, this is my last full day here in Uganda. I've had 3 months here, and so I'm just sort of doing a farewell live, which is going to be really hectic to get everything done. So feel free to ask questions. And if you want to come into the chat, send me your email address, Gmail. And I can get you to speak as well, so we can have a conversation rather than you having to type. Hi, Irina. Do you have your Gmail email ready, Irina? So you can come in and chat. So, you see, Irina, I started off the chat just talking to myself until people came in. So if you have any questions about my time here in Uganda, about production, about life in general, then fire away. But if not, I'll just talk about life, and I've got a video which is coming up. I've been Oluzumbu, Liam, come into the chat. So yes, send it here. Hopefully it will ask me to block it or show it. I'll copy it, and then I can invite you into the hangout. But then I'll cancel it afterwards so that no one sees your email address. And yeah, so life here in Uganda has been wonderful. I love the weather, I love the food, I love the culture and the people. I love my family, being able to spend time with my family. Unfortunately, because my husband's got his full-time work abroad, he's not able to come out as long as I have been able to come out. So I've been here for 3 months this time. Last time I was here for 6 months, 4 months and 2 months, so separately. So we'll see when I come back again for a nice stretch. I've got a meeting at midday while having some breakfast that will last me for the whole day until evening. I thought I should actually, Irina, what you can do is you can send it to me on WhatsApp. Oh, Liam, now I get you. You need an interpreter for the way I speak. I thought you meant for my Uganda. Thank you so much. So let's see if we can get Irina on. And I'm just looking down because it's my phone's there. And I'm looking to see what's coming in on my phone. It's better for me to put it up here. Just don't want to have any mishaps with my phone. There we go. So yeah, life here in Uganda. Because now I know how to get to different places. I've got freedom of mobility. Freedom of mobility. You really appreciate it if you don't have it. So knowing different places, being able to get there myself, and being able to just move around Kampala has been fantastic. And the more I stay here, the different routes I'll learn and how to get to places. Like for example, I learned how to get from one Wandige to town because I didn't realize Wandige was outside. I thought Wandige was inside and then go hill going towards Embaka's place. But actually it's on the other side of KPC. But yeah, I can't get my head around it. You can go straight and it connects you to KPC. So I figured that out. So I'm just going to send Arena a link, which will allow you to hear her voice. And we can chat and share our experiences. She can ask any questions or share any knowledge about Uganda. Let me invite a person. Okay, I've sent you an email. If you check to see if you got that email, Arena. So yeah, Uganda. I mean, a lot of the times that I've come, I've been to Central. Well, I've been to Kampala, Jinja, Kuno, Masindi, because we went to the national park some time ago. Not this time around, Masindi. I've been to Mbarara. Mbarara, is that where Lake Mburo is? Mbarara, Entebbe. But I haven't really ventured. I want to go to Fort Portal. I want to go like deep into the west. I want to go up to Bulu in the north. I want to go to to Busia, which borders Kenya. And then also, I think probably what restricted me last time I wanted to do a coach trip, take a coach to Kenya. And I was trying to work out whether you could do it in a day, go there, have a few hours and then come back. But it might be difficult. Okay, so Arena, did you get that link? Okay, she's installing Google Hangouts. Anybody else who has a Gmail account can come in and chat. So last time I was talking about the fact that I feel the responsibility as a producer to produce content that will help people to think about life differently, think about people differently, be more tolerant with each other, be more treat people with kindness. Yes, you might not think somebody either looks good or is famous, but you can still treat them with decency. But you don't know, sometimes we respond in certain ways because we haven't been exposed to that situation. We're just using our gut instincts to respond. So it's great when we're able to see differences in society, so we can start to maybe see a little bit into different people's lives. At the end of the day, although as human beings we like to know each other, black, white, Asian, tall, short, every single person is a unique being. Even twins are different. So yes, it makes it easier for us to meet people. And remember that even within a group, we're different. So why not explore that difference and allow us to be understanding or willing to learn maybe about each other? Sorry, I've missed the chat. Yeah, hey, very well. If we do an exchange, you come and I go. John Trail, you are a super good. Very good. So if you want to come in, have a chat to ask questions, it's not just my voice. Feel free to come in. TIA, I've already got your email, so let me know if you want to. You're not getting the sound very well. What about now? Is this better? Is this better? I've got my headphones on, so actually, yeah, the ambient noise here is quite loud. So let me speak a bit louder. And I had my headphones on, so I was probably speaking a bit quieter. Let me know if that sound is better. So yeah, just for anyone who's thinking about coming to Uganda, there are a few things that I thought that you should know, and I might make some short videos about that. You need to have the yellow fever jab to be able to come into the country. If you don't have the jab when you're coming into the country, then they'll give it to you at the airport, but it's very expensive at the airport. I think it's $60. Yes, there's a lot of noise because I'm in a cafe. So yes, $60 to get the yellow fever jab. But if you do it in Uganda, if you're in Uganda already and you want to go out, and you're a foreigner especially, then go to the city hall. Go to the city hall and you can get yellow fever jab there for I think 100,000 shillings. Kezia, do you want to come into the chat, as in to actually speak? If you have Gmail, pop your Gmail email in there, and then I will add you in so that we can hear your voice as well. We can have a conversation. So this morning, I'm posting a video. I don't know if it's uploaded yet. I'm posting a video. Oops. And basically, I was driving on my way to pick up a colleague. Thank you so much. Pick up a colleague from Record TV, and I started a conversation with myself based on the last live I did, and I was saying that if we don't understand why someone is doing something, in summary, what I was saying was that we should try and understand why they're doing it in the first place, to help us, and it will allow us to come from that mindset of understanding them and knowing why they're doing it, so that we can relate to them in a better way. Let me just get another fork. So I dropped my fork on my dress room there. Yeah, okay. So my example was that if you go to the Amazonian rainforest, there are people there that have their traditional, thank you, thank you, their traditional outfits, and the women don't wear, in that particular tribe, the women don't wear anything on their top. so their breasts are exposed. And the men, they tie, I think it's like banana fiber or some sort of rope or string or something. They loop it round their genitals, and I think the women wear beads as well on their waist, and that is their form of um, clothing, or their form of attire. Now, if you went there and you're used to wearing sort of your jeans and a top, and women being having their mammary glands covered, and at the end of the day, that's all they are. It's just fatty cells behind the nipple, because both men and women have nipples, right? Now, if you went to that culture and if you went to that tribe, and immediately you went in and you're like, oh my goodness, no, all the women should cover up. And I know that's what, colonialism, that's what happened as well. But then if you're to do that now, and you're like, all the women, no, it's wrong. What you're doing is not right. You shouldn't be doing that. The kids shouldn't see your natural body, growing up like that. Then are we really appreciating them for who they are? Have we understood why it is that they're doing that? Is it very hot there? Is there any need to wear anything on the top? So it was a case of starting that conversation of, why don't we first of all understand where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing, and then that will help us to know whether to know how to relate to them, because the only person you can control is yourself. Yes, you could try and positively influence people, but then again, you might think that what you're doing is positive, and it might not necessarily be. So I'll give you another example. In Australia, they introduced was a particular animal. I think it was a rabbit. They introduced rabbits to eat a particular plant that was I think it was a plant that was becoming a weed. But because they introduced rabbits, and you know how rabbits populate, they now have a rabbit problem. Was it Australia or New Zealand? I think New Zealand. You can Google it. So initially, they thought what they were doing was right, based on what they had, their plan, their ultimate plan. But then in the long term, it didn't work in their favor. It wasn't the right choice. I mean, that's a bit different anyway, but hopefully you get what I mean. So who's coming in to chat? So that I can eat my breakfast. Please ask me questions about Uganda, about my time here, about my experience here. But I'd say, all in all, it's a positive experience. And even the things that have happened that, one could say are negative, I look at them as a positive because it's given me a life experience. For example, yesterday my car got clamped. I was outside the crafts market, just opposite Park Royale, and beside the other mall where there's a supermarket. I think it's called Senna Supermarket. And there were no signs to say no parking. There were no signs on the line. There were no lines on the road. So I parked my car there. And there were other cars parked all the way up to the end. And I'd come from further up rather than from town. But then when I got back to the car, my wheel was clamped. I have to eat while talking. I'm making sure the food is on the side, because otherwise I won't be able to go for my meeting. So when I'm answering your question, then I'll stop eating, but ask the question. Let me do this for Gerald. Is that better, Gerald? You see, in some cultures, actually, while they're eating and talking, Am I back? Am I back? Please let me know if I'm back. Can you see me? Am I back? My connection I got disconnected. Sorry about that. Yay, I'm back now. Yay. Okay, great. So this is a perfect example. Gerald just said, please stop it, as in stop eating while talking. He did a video, well, he took me to get my first Rolex. And while I got my first Rolex, I was there. I did the video, I tasted it, I spoke about how it tasted and whatnot. And then before moving off, I asked him, do people here, oh, thank you. Do people here in Uganda eat while talking, like street food? Do they? Because I was told that they have to stop. You know, you generally don't eat and walk at the same time. Whereas in the UK, you can buy your lunch, your sandwich or whatever, and you can have it on the way to the office, because when you get to the office, usually time is up and you've got to sit down and start working. So people do that, and they're walking, they're talking with their friends as they're doing that. But then what they say is, don't talk while your mouth is full, as in if your mouth is full and then you're like, oh. But usually you push the food to the side and then you can talk, or you cover your mouth and then you can talk. So now, based on Gerald's upbringing, it's quite offensive for him to watch somebody talking as they're eating, right? Hi, Silmore and Husseina. Do you want to come in and chat? So it's number one, understanding, first of all, not getting so worried or offended by the comment, because at the end of the day, it's something that is affecting him, right? It's something that's an issue for him. Now, for me, it's not an issue. But what can I do to actually understand where he's coming from? Instead of being like, oh yeah, don't be silly, it's allowed, what's the big deal? It's a case of understanding, well, what is it specifically that's affecting him? Is it because of the fact that he can see food in the back of your mouth and as a result it makes him feel sick? Or is it just because he's always been told you can't eat, you can't talk if you've got any amount of food in your mouth? Or is it just, yeah, so it's finding out why there was an issue, and then from there you can move forward. So if you're still in the room, Gerald, if you can explain to us, so we can use this as a learning opportunity as to how we can relate to each other as human beings. Can you explain to me what exactly it is about people eating and talking that affects you, or why you ask for it to be stopped? Because all these other things are just assumptions, whether it's your upbringing or whether it's then it makes you feel sick or whatever. Those are just my assumptions. So now I'm asking you. Kabagere. What's kabagere? Hello. Oh, you're at work, you can't. Thank you, Mike Times. We're trying to use a comment as a learning experience. What are your views, people in the group, what are your views from your and where do you get those views from about people being able to eat and talk for the first time? Because I'm here in a restaurant and I'm looking around, there seems to be like different people, they've got food, they're eating, they're talking. Obviously they're talking to one person directly. Exactly. So Irina said it's good to understand why people do something or think a certain way. Good example about Gerald. Another person would not mind. For me personally, I don't mind. I've watched people on YouTube where they're having a snack because they're rushing to go out and pick up the kids or whatever. So they're having their sandwich or they're having the dinner, and there's some people that actually go online specifically to watch people eat. So it's very interesting that we're all flesh and blood, but we have different opinions and different reasons for things. For example, question to you then, Gerald, is it okay to drink and talk? If someone drinks, swallows a bit and then starts talking. And what is the difference then between drinking and talking? People meeting up and having a drink and talking. Obviously, it's harder to talk with drink in your mouth. But with food, biologically, you tend to chew, you swallow a bit, and you still have some in the side of your mouth, even when you swallow the main chunk of it, before you then take your next big bite. And usually, it's when you've taken your first sort of main swallow that you would then talk. Otherwise, physically, it's even hard to talk. You can choke. Exactly. So we do need Gerald to actually, I don't know if it's maybe because it cut off, we do need Gerald to actually help us use this as a learning opportunity. So Gerald, if you're still there, come in and chat. If you've totally gone, then I will just continue eating until somebody else, it's really affecting somebody else. And that's the other thing as well. For example, even in the Bible, Paul says, oh, for me, it's acceptable to eat meats that have been offered to idols. Because at the end of the day, who are the idols? I serve God and that's it. But if it makes my brother to fall, he would be willing to adapt his behavior for that moment. If it's something that was so painful to somebody else, like, oh my goodness, how could you do it? Because they haven't had that experience, or they haven't had that, they didn't have that understanding of the fact that once you've given thanks for your food, you're not worshiping that idol. It's fine for you to eat it. But because he had that emotional intelligence to say, okay, there might be other people that haven't thought that way, then let me be considerate to them. Not because I believe that what they've said or they're doing is right, but because you're considering the impact it's having on them. It might be distressing to them, it might be whatever to them, until they can actually go past that barrier themselves. Obviously, if it's something that's common to everyone, but is not common to that particular person, then you have to sort of balance it out. For example, someone might say, oh, they can't be in the same room or in the same building where there are women speaking. So, and then you go to a cafe and there are women speaking there, right? So as a person, would you just, in a general public place, would you just keep quiet because the person has said, sorry, all women, please keep quiet because it's affecting me? Would you just be quiet and then you wouldn't be able to talk or explain yourself? So you have to get the balance on whether it's something that's reasonable, and again, who defines what's reasonable, but then always use it as an opportunity to learn. So back to talking about Uganda, and I need to keep an eye on the time. I need to keep an eye on the time. So it's 3 minutes past 11. I dropped my fork again. It's interesting. I've never seen this before. They're spraying something. I think that's to get rid of mosquitoes or something. But they're spraying something in the cafe that I'm in, all the way around. They're spraying some sort of mist or chemical. If anyone knows what that is, please let me know. I don't know whether it's for bugs or insects, but it's right next to where people are eating, so that's quite strange. Excuse me. Can I have another fork, please? Yes. So I went to the crafts market yesterday, and it was really interesting. I've been there lots of times, Fork. Fork. Thank you. And it's really good because they're handmade things. There are different sculptures made from wood, made from cow horn. They don't sell ivory, so that's a good thing. They don't sell ivory products there. And they have lots of paintings. So if you ever come to Uganda, you can go to a place, you can go to a road called Buganda Road, and there's a crafts market there. So, yes, Uganda, I think one thing that I've learned from Uganda as well is if you live abroad, say you live in Denmark or the UK or the States, it's very easy to try and keep on converting the currency. And you're like, oh, that's really expensive or that's really cheap. But I think once you get to Uganda and you've been here for a while, thank you, and you've been here for a while, you'll start to know what the weight of currency is. And you'll know what 20,000 should be able to get you. And then you can work based on current value of the currency rather than what you would expect from that other country. Yesterday, I drove past the High Commission of Nigeria here in Uganda, but I was driving, so I couldn't take a picture. Oh, Irina's here. How are you?
I'm doing good. From you, that is a point.
I can't hear you properly, but can you just tell us what your YouTube channel is called?
My YouTube channel. Irina. Hello.
Oh, there you go. Do you have any questions for me for my farewell chat in Uganda about my experience here in Uganda? Because it's good to come from somebody else.
Yeah, I would like to know.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat the question? You'd like to know? Okay, it seems like we've lost Arena. Maybe she'll reconnect using the link. I think I'm still running. So, there she is. Is she back? No, I don't think she's back yet, but we'll keep on chatting about life here in Uganda. I put the icon on there so I can hurry up and finish my breakfast. You see, what you don't know, that doesn't affect you. So it's all in the mind. For example, there are people who go on YouTube and you just see this icon, but they could be doing anything, you know? They could be doing absolutely anything. They could be dressed absolutely any way, but you treat them differently because you can only hear their voice. If you saw them, then that conversation that you would have had would be totally skewed because you're like, oh my goodness, they're wearing whatever it is, or oh my goodness, they're in the, for example, bathroom or whatever. But if you didn't know that, you weren't aware of that, you would actually be speaking to them differently. So I find all of that quite interesting, the psychology of the human nature and how we treat each other based on what we see each other doing or saying. Questions about Uganda? I'm off? No, I'm still live. No, I'm still live. So, Arena, you have to reconnect. Okay. So currency in Uganda, for those of you who don't know, the first note is 1,000 shillings. Then it goes to 5,000, which is another note, which is green. 1,000 is a brown color. Then it goes to, 1,000. Then it goes to 2,000, which is blue. Then 5,000, which is green. Then 20,000, which is red. Then 10,000, which is purple. Then 20,000, which is red. Then 50,000, which is brown, a light brown. So just be careful when you're giving someone money. If you think you're giving them a 1,000 and you're giving them a 50,000, but the shape is different as well. The 1,000 is smaller than the 50,000, but they're similar colors. Can you still hear me on the YouTube channel? It still says I'm live, so I'm assuming you can. I will definitely miss Uganda for the period that I'm out of Uganda. But I can still, that's good. I can still stay connected via WhatsApp and via YouTube. Oh, Arena, the video is not there because I switched the video off so that I could eat my breakfast quickly. I'm still here. Because I was eating quite slowly and so that I could speak. So these are my, anyone coming to Uganda, these are my top tips. Firstly, well, not top tips, but top pieces of information. Firstly, if you want, you can actually get your visa on site. You can get your visa once you land in the country. You can do it beforehand, but it's just so convenient. You get there and then you just pay at the desk and they stamp they give you the visa. You must have a yellow fever vaccination card or proof that you've had your. Oh, hi, Arena.
Hi.
And now that's a lot
Hi
clearer
there.
now. That's a lot clearer now. So tell us what your YouTube channel is.
My YouTube channel is Arena TL Vibes.
Arena TL Vibes.
Vibes, yes. So I have a question. My question is
I totally missed that. You said, what's your best? And then I didn't hear anything after that. Okay, I think the fact that you've got your video on is affecting the transmission. So if you look at the top of your Google Hangouts, there's the camera sign with a line through it. If you press on that, I mean the camera sign, if you press on that, it switches off your camera and then we only see your icon. And that way we'll be able to hear you clearly. I can still see you. Go to the top. You've got the little, there we go. Right, so what's the question?
my question was, what way best that
This is so funny. I still missed the question. I can hear a lot of rustling with your microphone. With your microphone. So it seems like we've lost Arena. Sometimes the connection is not very good. So if you put the question, Arena, if you put the question in the chat box, that might help. So it seems like we've lost Arena, but I think she was trying to ask what's the best something. Could it be what's the best meal I've had? Now I'm going to start guessing. Hopefully she'll put the question in the, oh, what's the best and worst moments in Uganda? Okay, I've got your question now. It's good to try these things out. At least now you've been on a Google Hangouts, and you can come in again whenever you're ready. Just your microphone, I think, is rubbing against your top, so I'm hearing the microphone sound more than your voice. Best and worst moments in Uganda. Should we start with the best? Now it's interesting because for me, a moment is fleeting, isn't it? It's a moment and then it passes. But so it's more about sort of the whole experience. But if I think of one particular thing that was a good thing, there are just too many. Let's just narrow it down to this trip, the last 3 months. So my best moment, I think it might have to be finally making a decision on which station to go with for the TV show. Finally getting some breakthrough on this trip rather than having to go back and start again with negotiations. So I think that probably could have been my best moment, although I have too many, but I'll pick that one. Because also celebrating my children's birthdays, both of them, that was also lovely because we had Bounty Castle, and then the other one was in the village. So those have been nice moments because it's been time with family. And then worst moment, oh, let me see, what would be my worst moment? Am I still connected? Still says live, okay. What has been my worst moment? I think my worst moment was probably on my last trip. And my worst moment was having someone steal a lot of money from me, from my home as well. With a locked door, with a locked main door. So that was quite, I'd say it was a disappointing moment. But then again, it was a moment that was good for a life experience and to be able to learn something from life and from people as well. So yes, I would say that would have been my worst moment. Because I don't know if anybody else in here has been burgled, because if you're not aware of the difference between robbery and burglary, robbery is theft by force, so there must be some force involved. Theft is just taking something dishonestly without the owner's permission. And then burglary is when you enter a premises without as a trespasser in order to steal, commit criminal damage, or grievous bodily harm. So that's the difference. Now, if you've ever been burgled, you can understand the feeling of that invasion of your personal, your privacy, your space. It can affect you mentally because you know that somebody's entered into your private domain and taking something from you. And it's not even the taking, it's just the fact that they're able to get into your space where you sleep, where you carry out your normal day-to-day things, and somebody else has been able to get into that space. So anybody out there who's ever considered, getting into robbery or burglary, just consider the human impact. You're not just taking something from someone, you're actually emotionally affecting them, even if it's just for that moment. For some people, it goes on longer and it can affect them long term. So just be aware of that. It's the same thing with our words as well. Our words have an impact on people. It could actually affect someone emotionally. So be careful when you say things. Be careful when you utter words. And it's very easy just to blurt words out. We all do it. But be willing to understand as well. If your words offend someone, be willing to understand why it has offended that person, so that you can learn and put that in your memory bank to help you to move forward in life as well and grow personally. Thanks, Arena. I think we're quite kindred spirits from your YouTube channel. I think we are quite kindred spirits for some of the things that you've talked about. I've talked about on my channel as well. It's all about the mindset, isn't it? When we can start to understand ourselves, which is very difficult to do. I mean, even the Bible says the heart is desperately wicked. Sometimes you don't even know yourself. You don't know what you're capable of. But at the same time, positively as well, you don't know what you're capable of to be able to do amazing things. So I finished my breakfast now. I'll put the video back on. You see, there's always a solution. Usually when one person thinks something, there are probably a few other people that are thinking the same, but too shy to say something about it. But one of the things that you should learn is that by saying something, you can say it in a diplomatic way. Other people can learn from that, even if it's a contrary view. Other people can learn. So find diplomatic ways to open discussions. Be a person that's willing to discuss and to go back and forth without it being an argument. It doesn't have to be an argument. It can just be a discussion to learn and to learn about yourself and learn about others. So this was a solution to Gerald's thing. I was able to put this on just my icon while I speak. Now that because it might not just be him as well. So I'm aware of that. But now I can put the video back on. Hi. So discussion, is drinking and talking allowed? So you should see me now, hold on. Hello. I will be going into a meeting today, sorry about the clap, going into a meeting today to talk to a potential sponsor, an international sponsor based here in Uganda, to come on board with Let's Cook. We have several options. It just depends on who gets back to us to work out who we go with or which ones we go with. Maybe there's a combination. Thank you. Sorry about that. And in the discussions, really, it's about highlighting what the show is about. Because a lot of people hear the title, Let's Cook, and they think it's just about cooking. Whereas if you watched it, and if you watch it, 6th of July, 7 p.m. on Record TV, once you watch it, you see it's about actually slowly getting to know the contestants, knowing how they deal with life, the experiences that they've been through in life. And as a viewer, you can reflect for yourself on how you would deal with things that way. How would I answer that question? And wow, I didn't realize that's how maybe women feel when that happens, or that's how men feel when this happens. And the finals, oh my goodness, episode 6. I want to find out if there's anyone that doesn't cry, right? Close to the end, I want to find out if there's anyone that doesn't cry. So do give feedback. If you watch this show from start to finish and you don't cry on episode 6, oh my goodness, you need to do something about this here, right here. So let me just go back to the chat because I can't see that. The good thing as well, what I like about the show being on Record TV is that it's going to be broadcast live on their Facebook page. So even people outside of Uganda who are interested in Uganda can watch it, which is fantastic. But only while it's being broadcast on TV. Right. I need to do a time check. Right, okay. I've got to say goodbye now. I've got 30 minutes. The location is just around the corner, but I need to pick someone up. And thank you very much. I'll see if there's enough time to come in because I haven't really had that many questions. See if there's another time to come in. And that was a brilliant question, Arena. Thank you very much. It's Arena TL Vibes. Let me give the person that I'm going to be meeting up with a call. And then we should get to the location with plenty of time because we're just around the corner. And we shall make it happen. I always go in with into meetings with a positive attitude because at the end of the day, why not? I know that what I have is great, really good, and I know what they have can add to that. So why should I go in anything else than confident? But thank you for joining me, and hopefully I will see you before I leave. Hi, Brian. I'm fine, thank you. Bye. I'm just saying bye on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube.